another one.
What we got going on today?
We're speaking with Nia, who's a young representative over here. Just we're going to talk about how we can partner up with their group, with the youth. So
Yeah, she's with another group with the Gun Violence Association. Another individual, her name is Terry. So they invited us to come over here to speak with her team and the group of lawyers that they have on their team to see what we can help them with instead of like another alternative, instead of locking these youth up right away, and maybe see if there's some kind of mentor program we can create within, and amongst other things that we're unsure what they're going to bring up. But I know that was one of the main topics. The reason why they invited us is because from that sit down that event we went to with Sim Gill, it started from there. One of the lawyers was there.
Okay.
So
And
somehow
Sim Gill is the district attorney for the state.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the lady that the lady that invited us, is her organization just like a nonprofit, or is she with the state? Like, what is her affiliation with the state?
So part of it is part of her organization is nonprofit, and then the Gun Violence Association, I'm not too sure about theirs. So, but they do also have a nonprofit, and it could be all nonprofit on her side.
Yeah.
But Nia, she works with the state.
yeah, she works with the state, and then she works here part-time. She's kind of a community advocate, so she does a lot she's in a couple spaces, Diva, and you know what I'm saying, but she's the young lady that had a question over there at the
Oh, the one that said she was with us?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yes,
That one.
that's
the
Nia.
poly kid?
Yeah, the poly youngster.
Okay,
So,
okay.
yep. But yeah, I think they wanted, because of our life experiences, they wanted to talk to us about some of the stuff. They probably want to collab with us. So, we're here to listen and see how we can
To see what we can take from it. It may not be for us. It may, it may be more for you or more for us, or it may not be for none of us. And that's why we're coming here to talk, to see what they have in mind, and then of course we'll let them know where we stand on it as well. So,
I mean, are we working in conjunction with like the district attorney's office? Like, what's the kind of layout? Have they given you guys kind of a layout on how it would?
We haven't. Like I said, this is just a meeting that we're gonna listen, and then that's kind of why we wanted you here, so we can all listen, and we can all take away and be like, hey, bro, I don't know, or I really. But I think a lot of it is with the youth. They're trying to, and anti-gun violence. So it's worth a listen, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, this is this kind of space that we're trying to get into,
Yes.
and we can't really do a whole lot. I mean, you guys do what you guys do in your community, but to be able to get into those spaces, we gotta have our doors opened by these people that have already been involved, and like it or not, the state, the government, because they're the one that's locking everybody up. They're the ones that controls everything.
We just gotta keep our souls intact.
Yeah, that's it.
exactly. We just got to stand on what we stand on. Now, we do have other people that function with us. Want to meet with these people? We're never going to get anywhere. No.
Yeah.
They pretty much run the show. We on the streets.
Yeah, we need to be able to change the system. You can't do it from the outside in, because no one's going to listen to you. The people that are in power, the people that are in position of authority, if you're not sitting at their table, you don't mean nothing to them. Regardless how we feel about that or not, they run the city. They created this the government, the system,
the laws.
We've all been victim of it. We've all been subject to it. And the only way we can change it is to get our foot in the door. But at the same time, that don't mean we compromise our integrity and what we're about. Because we know the life where we come from. We know the people that we're dealing with. They don't. They just see black and white. Oh, you got a pistol. Or you did this. You did that. Well, according to this is how much time you get. So on and so forth. But
and like you said, man, we want a seat at the table. That don't mean we got to eat that. What
No.
we eat, you know what I mean? So,
and that's the things that these people out here got to get out of their head, man. We're not trying to be the motherfucking police.
Right.
exactly,
You know what I mean?
Bro.
We trying to save you from getting caught up with the police.
We want to have your back when in these spaces, so we can say, nah, that's not how little you know, Lil Mace says, no, it's not how Lil Dez is not. This is not how it's going down. We're not, you know what I mean? So,
We can be that group that's always going to get together and go in this little room and just express our feelings amongst ourselves.
yes.
And never get anywhere.
Yeah, we could be
Or
that.
we can be the one
yeah, exactly.
expressing our feelings and be like, let's see how we can have a seat with these guys and sit down and
Yeah,
discuss
because we
these
can't
things.
talk to kids that are facing prison time. We don't have access to them. You know what I mean? The court
Yes,
system
yeah.
has access to them.
Exactly.
The court system owns them.
Exactly.
And
bro.
we're trying to provide a space where they send them to us instead of to the penitentiary. You know?
Right.
And
Yeah.
to do that, we have to be here.
Yeah.
To do that, we
Yep.
have to speak
and
to
we
people.
gotta listen, and we
Yeah.
gotta, you know, ask questions, and then after we can say, nah, bro, or I like it, you know. So,
Yeah, and like you said, the one thing we'll never do is compromise
Yeah.
our integrity. You know what I mean? And to where they're asking us to work for them, and like we're gonna always come with all every one of us where we came from, man. It's that battle. There's gonna be an ongoing battle, and this is just the beginning of it.
Yep.
And for us, anyways, there's others that's done it before us, and we're just this is the beginning for us. And from the time that we started to now, I mean, we come a long ways in a short amount of time. You know, so
and I think we just keep our ears open, have a, you know, have open dialogue, but at the same time, like Dad said, man, we just know where we're at, where our loyalty is, where our, you know, our standards are.
And the way,
Maintain
yeah,
those.
and who we are, we have a potential to do something really big because we're from the street, right? And our credit's intact. Our status, our street cred, all the other whatever it is, the credentials that the people in the street need to have to be able to function with us, it's intact. You know? And as opposed to like, you know, just somebody coming out like nobody knows them and try to talk to you about this and that. And yeah, and for the people that have issues with what we're doing, we have the foundation to stand here in front of them and give them our side. Because they just want to sit on the sideline and say what they want to say, but what are you really doing to help the community?
exactly.
You just worry about someone else. You just want to sit here and talk about what we shouldn't do. But what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like if you put your foot in, you wake up in the morning, you put in the effort, then you can come talk to us.
Yeah.
But if you still sitting there on that corner, preaching that bullshit, you miss me with that. You know what I mean? And that's what separates ourselves from the rest of the people that's attempt this is because we can still go back into our community.
Exactly.
We can still go back to the
Yep.
people in the streets and still get the bro hugs and the handshakes and all the rest.
No, we ain't sold out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
And
What
these
time is it?
youngsters, they would know because, like we mentioned on, the other time, like go ask your big homie.
Right.
Like if there's an issue with who we are, if you have any questions on who we are, just ask your peoples.
Yeah.
And we're not worried about what your people's gonna come back and tell them because they're gonna tell them exactly who we are. And like and if those guys are doing it, then they mean it.
Yeah.
We're not getting paid for this.
Just gotta keep standing
No,
on it.
no. We're not. I mean, right now we're supposed to be at work, but because some of our stuff fell through and got pushed back, we made this exception of like, man, you know what? Short notice. That's why I reached out to you this morning. I was like, man, this is an opportunity, but again, like we're not sitting at home like in the back room gossiping. It's not like let's go put in some work since we're not at work.
Yeah.
Let's go put in some work. You know what I mean? So.
And it's always good to have. That's why we reach out to 3 is better than 1. Does that make sense? And in that we can all listen with all our ears. I could hear something different. You could hear something different. So I'm excited to be in these spaces. I'm glad we got the crew together.
So I work, I say I'm on call, man. I don't know where I'm going. I have an idea of what I came out here to do, but I can't say I know how to do it. I haven't been here. I don't know how the system works. I don't know how none of that works.
We're in the same space as you. Mesa,
Yep.
shit, we don't know either.
We don't.
We just sit down and talk and come up with a plan. It sounds good. Let's roll. You know what I mean? So, but no, we understand, man. And again, like Solo mentioned, we always appreciate when you come through, man.
Yeah, man.
Your voice your voice and your message, man, it holds a lot of weight, and a lot of people
man.
listen. So, but we should make it up to this thing. I think it's time. So
I'm pretty sure it's through here, right?
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that you posted, I see it over like this. Now, another choice is made, it's too far to turn back.
Look,
Hi.
this.
Hi, I'm Pam. I'm sorry I kept you guys waiting. Hi. Hi, nice to meet you. Hi. Hi.
Before we start, I asked her if it was okay to record. I don't want to record it if you're not okay with it.
Oh, no, sure.
Because we're just trying to document, I'm trying to document the effort that these guys been putting in the community. You know, since I've been involved with them, they put in a lot of work. They
Yeah.
do it on their own. So I just wanted to just, document that so that way they can get some more exposure and maybe some more help and funding to do what they do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead. I
So
apologize
tell us
so
a little
much.
bit about yourself, Pat.
I'm not that exciting.
You're fashionably late though.
I know. I'm so sorry, you guys. It's like the story of my life. It's so embarrassing. I have no. It's just Pam. Okay, so you guys have been chatting. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, we're just getting to know each other.
Okay. Well, so I'll just tell you guys, I will tell you about me, just so you know. So I'm Pam Vickery, and I've been a juvenile defense attorney for 24 years. I have to think about that for a second. So I started out working at the guardian ad litem's office, which is representing kids when they're on the neglect abuse side of cases. I was a law clerk there, and then I ended up coming to work for this office at the time and started representing kids with delinquency offenses. And then just been here, and now I'm the director of our office. We do a lot of legislative stuff, so I've been involved with a lot of legislative things, there was a big juvenile justice overhaul kind of the entire system several years ago where we tried to move low-risk kids out of the system and have them go through a diversion process rather than a formal court proceeding, set presumptive timeframes so that young people in the system at least know how long they're gonna start out being there versus just oh, you might be here from now until whenever, right? So we did a whole bunch of stuff with that, but we've also been involved in legislation to say that kids shouldn't be shackled in the courtroom. Adding stuff about making sure that a parent is present during a custodial interrogation with a police officer.
Right.
That
I thought that was already law.
No, it wasn't really law. It was. It became law in 2000. When did we pass that? 2022.
Really?
Just recently.
2021. Yeah. So what it was before is you had a statute that's. And it wasn't a statute. It was a court rule that said if a kid was under 14, they were presumed not capable of waiving their Miranda rights, and you needed a parent's permission, but it was a presumption, so you could still rebut it and say, oh, but this kid's had lots of, prosecution could still say, oh, but this kid's had lots of interaction with police or whatever, right? And then, so in 2021, I think it was, I think it's 2021. Anyway, we worked with the legislator to pass that a parent has to be present for every custodial interrogation. But really,
Is that only for kids under the age of 14 or for kids under 18?
Under 18.
Okay.
And that was a big part of the argument is some people were it should be like that for younger kids, but not for older kids, and not on really serious offenses. And I'm no, it's the serious offenses where people.
We're the ones that need it because they're the ones that are going to be in trouble. And just because you're out in the street and having interaction with the police doesn't mean you know the law.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you know anything about your rights.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing too is what we argued about is we're in U.S. Supreme Court case law talks about that you can't just say this kid's 15 so they understand this people's development is so dynamic and impacted by other things and everybody develops at a different age, and so anyway that one we're still working on. We have a long ways to go on that because the truth is it really should be an attorney, not a parent, because parents don't know their rights any more
more than the kids do.
So But that's going to be a pretty hard battle, I think, especially with, you know, some of the uptick in certain types of offenses that we've seen right now. Like, it's kind of not a great climate. One thing I will say that I'm really proud of that we've had really good impact with is the number of kids that get transferred to the adult system. We've had over the past, starting around 2013, every year, like not every year, but every couple of years, we've whittled away at bringing that number down substantially. So that is good. We still transfer kids and we still have drug files, so same thing, we still have a ways to go there. But I mean, it used to be that any kid who'd been to secure care and got out and committed any felony, even if it wasn't a violent felony, like could have stolen someone's like credit card or something, then it was like an automatic file in the adult system. So those really were your kids that made up like the biggest percentage of kids that were in the adult system. So we changed all of that stuff. So we've had some good success with that. Anyway, the long point is we're really involved in like legislative stuff. It's hard right now, like the climate's a little weird right now. Yeah, so anyway, so that's me. So you guys, I missed your guys' introduction. You guys tell me about you.
Well, my name is Solo, and you know, like I said, we were just member day one, but a lot of us have been through the justice system young, and so basically I've just been trying to give back to my community and trying to help young people based off my lived experiences, you know, whether it's through mentoring, support, and, you know, community advocacy, things like that. And then I've known Nia for a few years now, being in the community, doing like some of these outreaches. We became friends, and then along the way we've kept meeting up in these spaces, and then, you know, and then I've known Des for a long, long time. We ended up meeting in prison together. Okay. And I was 20 at the time, and Des came in when he had got certified as a youngster. So he came into prison. I was there the first day he walked into prison, and then we just been together ever since. We just, you know, we've always seemed to reconnect. And he got out, and we kind of helped each other, you know, get through life. We just became great friends over the years. And then along the way, I met Mesa through Des and through this stuff that we're doing with our group day one. And he has his own story, a great story. And so we kind of just put all our heads together and kind of, you know, use our life experiences and just kind of use our reputation as some of these men on the streets that, you know, a lot of us know a lot of these young kids in our background. A lot of kids respect us, and you know, for lack of a better word, they look up to us. And so we've kind of, instead of doing a negative, we decided, okay, well, if you're looking up to us, then let's redirect your future and things like that. So we decided to bring together a group called Day One. And Desmond and my cousin who passed away started a few years ago. And yeah, long story short, here we are today with Des.
So my name is Des, and how I guess how I got going on this was he mentioned his cousin that passed away. His name was Sam Pooley, and I had a situation at home where my kids was watching a TV show, and I didn't like what they was watching, and it was on YouTube. So I told them, turn the channel. I don't want you watching that stuff. And when they changed the channel, it was just a little video clip of a parent making a funny face to it, and the baby looked like it was probably a month or two old. And this baby was trying to imitate the facial expression that the parent was doing, and for some reason that image stuck with me, because I remember going out to the garage and just sitting there, and it just kept coming back, and this is 2021 this happened, and it for me it just finally hit me because of the way I was brought up, grew up. I grew up in California. I'm from Long Beach, California, and just living that lifestyle, and it like I tell people, it's like the color of my skin. Like the way I grew up, you just can never erase the way that all the experience you went through, you know, growing up and during that time. So, but it hit me then because when I was thinking about all the people that was coming in, like volunteers that was coming in and trying to tell me, hey, you shouldn't do this, you should do this, even like some of the pastors that would come in and preach their gospel and all that, you know. And I would do it. I would go out just because I wanted time out of the cell, and that's the truth, you know. But I never picked up on anything, and I'm talking about years of this. And what hit me was is because all the years, even uncles and cousins and stuff like, hey, Des, you shouldn't be doing that. I just didn't listen, and it hit me that I did the things I did in my past because it's what I seen. It's what I saw. I saw my uncles out there hanging out, drinking. I wanted to do that. I seen them hitting up on the wall, getting into these gang fights. I wanted to do this because I was watching these stuff. And it was the baby that was watching what the parent was doing. It was imitating that. And I called Sam up and I was like, damn, dog, that's like, man, we had it wrong the whole time. And so I explained to him what I was thinking and what I saw. I was like, we need to quit telling these kids what to do. We got to show them a different way. You know, so that's how all that started. I said, we got to show them. I said, man, to me, it was a fluke anyways because it's a monopoly. To me, this is my opinion. It's going to always keep happening if we keep telling them what to do. We got to quit telling them, and we got to show them a different way. And that's by putting in the word and show them a different way that if you follow this path, it'll lead you to this. Keep doing what you're doing. It's going to lead you to this. I said, but we got to quit talking and show them that this is the way. So, and that's how the day one started. And just through my life experience, when I came here to Utah, and like Solo mentioned, I was certified at a very young age. They didn't know how to handle my case here because this is in '91.
So were you certified living in Utah or in California?
So I was on the run. Just got out from a camp out in California. And within the week I had caught another case and I was on a run. So I had a good friend of mine, he was on his way to Utah, so I hitched a ride on the way to Utah, and I didn't last very long here because of the way I was brought up. And Utah it was just a culture shock for me, period. You know, I was just shocked. This is stuff I read in books. You know, I was like, damn, you know. But anyways, I just never. But I was just loose with it out here, and so when I caught my case in Davis County, and just my background, they just didn't know how to handle that case. So to them, it was real extreme, and the first thing they did was, you know, certify me. You know, they didn't understand the gang life at that time, you know, because it was still new here in Utah. We're talking about '91, you know, and yeah, so that case was real quick. You know, my parents, nobody attended my stuff because, you know, we come from a very poor family, so I'm out here by myself.
And how old were you?
15. By the time I make it to prison, I'm 16. You know, so yeah, I went through that, and it, like I fast forward to today, like some of these kids that are getting caught up in these gun charges, right? And you know, I would read the paper, and of course I don't know all the details. I'm just reading what I'm reading. But the one question I do have that always stuck with me when I read stuff like that. So back home, you're a documented gang member. You're documented. It's in your files. So this is back then, 80s. You know, they actually have a portfolio in the cop car where they open it up. They actually, I mean, now it's all technologies, right?
Yeah, it used to be a big red stamp on the front of the manila.
Exactly. You're
Show
a documented gang member.
Yep. So
when these kids now, and this question I had was, when they pick up these gun charges and they go through their process and they're deemed to be, it's gang related, I just never understood how can that stick of, you know, the gang related crime, if you're not documented, if you're not a documented gang member, but they put that tag on you,
Yeah.
that, you know, and so you're going through court as maybe you're a wannabe, because there's a lot of them, right? But you're not a documented gang member. And I think that plays a lot into when these kids are going through the court system, because that's already put on you, that you're documented.
They use their tattoos, they have markings that have, you know, that emphasize who their affiliations are. Like,
exactly, and that's another thing. When they put up, they have tattoos. See, and I have mine since I was 11 years old. So I'm fully documented versus a lot of these kids now. A lot of them don't have markings. A lot of them is not documented as a gang member, and a lot of them is a first time offense, and already it's gang affiliated, and so yeah. But going back to, like I said, 91, it was new to them in that county. We're talking about Davis County, so yes, I went through that process and went through that experience, and then when I got out, I've been out since 05.
So you went in 91-ish
Yeah, 91.
and stayed till 2005.
I got out in 98. I
Okay.
got out in 98 and then picked up a Fed case that sent me back.
Okay.
And this, so the case, everybody knows my case in my circle. I was at the wrong house at the wrong time. I was playing football, trying to get my life back together.
This is in 91 or?
98.
No, the 90, okay.
Or it's,
The after.
yeah, this is 2000, something, 2000.
Okay.
Yeah. Trying to get my life back together. One of my friends, they raided his house when I stopped. I just dropped off people from football practice, and he lived in the same neighborhood, so I stopped there and just get caught up on ESPN for school. I remember this vividly. And within 10 minutes, they kicked in the doors. They raided the house. They found a gun in his house. So they didn't find nothing but the gun. And a bunch of ammunition, and of course they took me out and questioned me and was asking about him, about some drugs, and of course I don't know nothing. And 72 hours, they locked me up. 72 hours, they failed to file. I got out. Within a month, the feds picked up the case, brought me back in because they're trying to get him, and because I was in the vicinity of a firearm. That's what gave me the
Felon in possession?
Yeah.
Constructive
Constructive
possession?
possession.
Yeah.
So here I am, going right back, and I was like, as hard as I work, you remember, I put in the work to correct my life.
I remember that time.
It was devastating to me. I mean, damn, I did everything. You know, found a job, started a family, and I get emotional about it because there is a lot of guys like me that's out on the street that's trying to correct things. But it was a big setback, you know. It set me back, and here I got to go back through this battlefield and survive this war, you know. And I lost, you know, I ended up losing my mom when I was incarcerated. So, you know, so a lot of this stuff played a role, but you know, I stayed strong though because my support group when I got out, Solo was there. So if it wasn't for Solo, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today because he hooked me up with a job, and that job took me out of town, and it took me away from everybody. It gave me enough time to get my feet back under me, get my mind right, and you know, we started doing community service before. Within our circle before it was called community service. We was just out there kind of mentoring some of the kids, helping them out, helping them find a job, you know, doing volunteer work here and there. Solo's been real active in that community. And then, you know, we've been in and out, like I said, with my line of work, I travel so much. And then 2021, it was all like, you know, the team just got bigger. And that's how we started day one, and we started pushing real hard on them. You know, so.
Just real quick, what's sad about the case that there's a cop where he had to go back and do the fair time was he basically caught that charge because he wouldn't tell. Right. If that makes sense. And so
Yeah.
that's some of the stuff that happens once you have that record on file, being in gangs, you know, being on the file. Now they have a leverage on you, and because you won't tell on a friend, and even if you don't know the situation, oh yeah, well, you got a record, your charges, you got priors for this, well, and then and his loyalty to his friend is what, you know, what is the saddest part. And a lot of them, they're young kids. That's what's, you know.
Exactly. So they did come see me in the county jail because they told me straight up they wasn't there for me. They needed me to read a statement, and they brought the statement with them. They stuck it on the glass. This is the old county jail, and they stuck it on the glass, and it was all like, we just need you to read this 2 lines. We'll give your life back. And it was just basically the middle finger, and like, you got me effed up, like tripping. So they told me, well, you know, and at the time I didn't understand the federal law. You know, I just did state time. So I didn't understand just being in the vicinity of a firearm. It was a, you know, felony offense under the federal guidelines. So I wrote it as far as I could, and everybody that was in there was all like, that did fed times like this, you might as well take the plea deal. You're done. You know, and if I took it to trial, of course I would probably been looking at close to 20 years just because of my background. And yeah, so I was yeah, because I wouldn't tell. Yeah, that's gave me that time. So
Those are the things, you know, looking back, hindsight, you know, we stand firm on what we believe in, and, you know, we do the time that we need to do, and then here we are in the space where, you know, all that hard work and all standing on your morals and your, you know, it's here we are today, so I commend this.
Some of the things you're talking about, and we can circle back to this because I want to hear your, I didn't mean to cut off or anything, but it's interesting to me because I feel like, so around, I mean, let's see, so when was I graduated from law school in '99, so I started practicing in 2000. So I missed like the super predator era of the 90s, supposedly, right?
Mandatory fixed sentences, minimum mandatory.
Yeah, so like I came in and started practicing when those laws had then been implemented. So they were just kind of, like when I started practicing, it's just what it was, right? It was like, okay. And then you're getting into it and pretty soon you're going, this seems a little like a little harsh. Where are we at? But at the time, like with the gang stuff, in my practice, what they had, like I said, show cap, and that was, I remember distinctly, there was that big red stamp on the front of the red envelope, and we pushed back. Then there came a point later where people really pushed back on show cap for all the things you're talking about, right? But some of what I think is, you know, and like you said, big people not understanding like gang life and stuff, and then fast forward a little bit and people talk about this is people's community and this is, anyway, I think it's interesting to me because now we talk about like people understand gang life or gang mentality better, but there's not really any suggestions for like addressing the behavior or addressing the mentality about the behavior. Because I feel like we're fighting the same issues, right? Like when I'm dealing with like law enforcement, anyone who is peripherally involved is a gang member. And I'm like, there's a real difference between the kids on like the margin of the gang and the kids really in the gang. And then even the kids in the gang, why are they in the gang, right? I don't feel like there's a good distinction between the two. And then to your point,
Well, they don't want a distinction between the two.
yeah,
The system is to funnel kids through the system because people don't understand that all the penitentiaries all throughout the United States are a corporation.
yeah.
If you run a hotel, you want your rooms to be occupied. So all the laws they passed, you know, since then till now, is to occupy those spaces. You know, like just like him, they're not concerned about the truth. They just know he's a felon and he doesn't want to cooperate, so let's fill one of the rooms up.
And I think also too, like to go back to like being on that show at that stamp. To be honest, like I came here in '89 and I was gang banging as well, but I noticed it's like what we talked about earlier. Back then, they in a conservative state, any kid from the West Side is a gang member. Any brown or black kid is gonna be put on a gang file. You know, little Timmy's probably, like you said, he's got a gun because he's hunting. So I think in this conservative state back then, it didn't matter if you were black or brown, you were from Talking Crib, or you were from, you know, SOS, or you were from, you know. So I think there is a lot of it. It being in a conservative state, very racial, and this is back in '89, '90, '91. It was easy to lock up a person of color, and it was easy to put Lil Shoney as a member of a Talking Crib, you know. So that's I think that's how it was for living in Utah back then. So.
Well, Pat, just like what you was just talking about, I totally agree with you. There is not a distinction of one or the other. You know, is he fully both feet in this way, or that one that's been walking that line? you know, and but we know what they go with. He's just, this is what he is. You
Yeah,
know?
it makes it easier for them. They don't have to do the hard work of really trying to help these kids. You label them as a gang member, here's the criteria, you can send them away.
I had a conversation with Nia because we talked about nonprofits, and this was probably 2-3 months ago. And we talked about, you know, you start a nonprofit, and the group that's ahead of you, when you're trying to get that funding to support your nonprofit. And we know that certain people's gonna get it before Nia will, that's ahead of Nia, right? And this is just my opinion. But these people that claim to be professionals at determining who's a gang member, or even have any counsel for kids that are active or looking to. I just don't understand, like, what schooling did you take? Because our schooling happened on the street. Like, we are the true professionals because we lived that life. Because you chose to sit in some class and listen to something that happened in LA or Chicago.
Psychology.
Yeah, it doesn't apply to Utah. Utah is a very unique state, and we talked about this because in a lot of these states, it's a racial thing, and it is. It's a business of race. When you talk about the gang, this man can speak of it. He did a lot of his time in California. Utah is real unique because it's not. It's not. What's the word? It's not
We
based
don't
on.
have the history of hatred that these other communities
it's not
have.
like a racial
That's
thing.
Yes.
yeah. You know, when you move into Chicago, when you move into California, you move to Compton, Oakland, all that. These are neighborhoods that's designated for your particular color, particular race, and they keep you divided. You know, and then over the years, conflict ensued, whatever. But like in California, the hatreds between Mexicans, whites, and black is bar none compared to any other state that I've been in. Like, if you're a white person and you get caught drinking or smoking behind a black person, your homeboy's gonna kill you. You know, same thing with, you know, vice versa. But out here in Utah, like, the Polynesians were like the blacks to us. They didn't have blacks, so, you know, when the Mormons brought the Polynesians in, then that was like the new, you know, they're different people. But in our community, like, there's not really a community out here that is just all blacks or all Mexicans or all Asians. Every community out here throughout Utah is diverse. I mean, it might be majority white because that's the majority of the people, but you got Tongan families that live there, Samoan families in there, a couple Asians here,
I
a
was
couple
just
blacks
asking
here,
you this
Yeah.
a
question.
couple Mexicans. So it's really like just a gumbo pot. You know,
And that's what-
and we're able to all be friends. Like, we all grew up being friends until we got older and started, you know, taking sides on different conflicts and things. But yeah, we don't have that division that other states have a hard time getting over because there's so much history behind it.
And that's why our group is so unique, because we bring our lived experience, our profession, I guess you want to call it, into these, when we go out and mentor, because the truth is being spoken. You know, we're getting into them raw. We don't use the scare tactics. We just giving them our lived experience, and these are the consequences. We just had a talk at an Odyssey House in Mesa, just as his story there was, you could tell it affected a lot of the kids because they were smiling at first. And by the time, you know, 10 minutes into the conversation, all the smiles went away because then all their heads went down. You could tell every one of them was thinking about what he was talking about. And this is what separates us from the one that went to school to speak on gang violence and how to help fix these problems. And that's what we're offering when we go to meet with different nonprofit groups. And like I said, when we sat down with Sim Gill,
Yeah, first-hand experience.
First-hand experience. And we don't come, because you see the Scare Straight years ago. I mean,
It didn't
yeah, you
work.
probably get a kid or two, you know. And I'm not saying it didn't work. We just, you know, we have a
Sending
different
people
approach.
to detention sometimes works. Still
Yeah.
doesn't mean it was good for them.
Right, you know. So, and that's what we bring.
Like we can't find a different way than that, is what,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah. So, and that's what we are here, is like, what can we do? We know what we can do, is how can we, I guess, work together and find a way where we can help even alter these kids' thoughts to start making a better decision in life than the path they're leading now. So.
Yeah, we don't have all the answers, but we know what doesn't work. You know, we know that things that was done before hasn't worked, not to the point where it's satisfactory to us and our community. You know, and a lot of the problems the reason why it hasn't worked is that the people that are appointed to come and speak to these kids are not relatable. And you know, if you have a kid that's out there in the streets that live with a certain mentality, he's not going to hear from some college-educated people, from people that's from the system, from the prosecutor's office, or from law enforcement, because one, the mentality clashes already. But the difference between, you know, those people and us is that we're from there, and we haven't fallen out of our community. We've just got to a point in our lives where we want something better for ourselves and for the generation behind me. I spent my last 25 years in prison. I got locked up for this case in '98. I just came home 2022. You know, so the last few years before I came home, I was just trying to figure out, like, because I've been there. I've been in those cold cells. I've been in race riots. I've been through all the other stuff, the misery of it. And like, in my mind, it's like I wouldn't wish this for my worst enemy.
Right.
You know, so coming home, I'm still involved in my community, whether you want to call it a gang or a community or whatever. These are the people that I grew up with. These are people that have kids that are out there. And my thing is like, man, I don't want to see I don't have any kids, you know, but I don't want to see one of my kids having to sit or one of my friends' kids having to sit in the cell. I don't wish this for anybody. So how do I do that? And my objective was, how do I find a way to, you know, share my story in a way where it makes them take a second look at their life. And when I came home, you know, I know Dad before I got locked up, so he's friends with a lot of people that I grew up with. And they reached out to me last summer and was like, hey, this is what we're doing over here. We want to come through. And since then, I told him, look, I'm on call whenever. Like, he just called me this morning.
Yeah.
He said, hey, this last notice, we're over here. We're going to come through. I just got up, jumped in the shower, and I'm here.
Yeah.
Because, you know, just, these guys are inspiring me because they've been out here doing it, and I see that it can be done. And it can be done, I believe, in the right way. Because we're not here to preach to the kids. We're not here to tell you that you're doing anything wrong. We're just here to share you a story about the choices that you make and where it's going to end up. And it's not from somebody that seen other people go through this life. Like they tell, oh, you keep doing this, you're going to end up in prison. No, we really did end up in prison. And my homies really did end up dead.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not projecting somebody else's life and sharing it with you to scare you. And I'm not trying to scare you with my life. I'm just telling you, hey, this really did happen. I'm living proof of it. And by the grace of God, I was able to come back home, even though it took 25 years to get back. But I still have friends in there now that are never coming home, that were locked up when they were 18, 19 years old. And the person they are today is not the same as they were when they were a 19-year-old kid. But the system don't care about that. The system sees that you committed this crime and they were able to give you a life sentence or 120 years, and they go back home. It doesn't affect them. When that judge hit the gavel, I don't know if they lose any sleep over it. I'm not in their head. But they're not affected by the people that's incarcerated. But the families are. And even though these men, they're grown men now, have evolved and bettered themselves and want something better and want an opportunity to do something productive with their lives, they're never gonna have that opportunity. And I still communicate with them, with a few of them that they still call me. I still do whatever I can for them because I've been there and I know what they're doing. And you know, before I came home, I kind of tell them like what I was trying to do, and they're like, man, yeah, share our story. Let them, man, stop feeding the system with our kids, with our youth.
Right.
And go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask, was your sentence from California or from
No,
Utah?
from Utah.
From Utah.
I caught a bank robbery case out here in Salt Lake, and I went through right here down the street, the federal building, and got sentenced to. I got 18 years for bank robbery, Then I got another 8 years tacked on it for beating up a guard while I was in the county jail. So I ended up with a 26-year sentence. And I just came home 2022, I was 10.
And how old were you when you?
Well, I first went to the feds when I was 18. I went in there and I caught my case in 95. I got out for 6 months. That's when I ran into gangs in 98. And in 98 is when I caught my bank robbery case. But I've been in the juvenile system since 94. So prior to this, since 94, I was home maybe a total of a year. 3 months in 95 and not even a year, 6 months in 98. So I've lived my whole adult life incarcerated.
You know, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Pam, I was telling Solo when I got this going, and I shared it, with him like I did with Sam. What made me start thinking this way? And I was telling Solo, I said, man, if I can go back to when I was doing all that stuff, if I had someone like was showing me a different way, even though that was my atmosphere I was growing up in, in the ghettos. Not saying that you couldn't make it out of there, because there's guys I know that's in the league that's made it out there. But I was telling Solo, I said, I promise you, man, I said, if I had someone to show me a different way, I probably would have followed that, because I was a kid, we had no money. What do kids do when they're bored? I mean, they do stuff that get them in trouble, whether it's going out somewhere and coming home hours later. You had a curfew, you get in trouble, whether it's stealing a bike because you can't afford a bike. I mean, we was doing stuff that we weren't supposed to be doing because boredom kicked in.
Idle hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, boredom and poverty.
Yeah.
Poverty is not a good mix.
So back to what Mesa talked about, these programs, and I was telling Solo, I said, I remember in the parks, and yeah, we got these, what do you call them, at the parks now, but they got the gym and the swimming pool inside.
Family centers.
Yeah, the family centers. I said, the parks, I said, I remember the parks, man, they had this little ass shed, and you just go check out this little checkerboards, and it was still boring, but it gave us something to do. Like a lot of my kids that didn't have money either, we all just kind of flocked to the park, and we just kind of did a little bit of activities. But even then, because we had at once, so that happened. And by that time, I'm already in the game. We're talking about 10 years old. My son just turned 12. And me and my wife talked like, man, so 2 years, I said, and these guys know my son, I said, man, I must have been a horrible kid because my first time I got picked up when I was 10. But anyways, there was a year that they started this, and I don't know how they got the funding, but at the park we were signing up for football. And for that year, I remember that when we was playing football, because it was free for us, we actually, like, even though there was other kids from different neighborhoods, the fight stopped because it was provided to us. And then I don't know what it was back then, but when that went away, that's what we went back doing. We went back to full-on gangbanging because that got taken from us. And I think about the money that's spent to house these kids, to lock them up, versus
The money that would take to
Capitalism,
provide a
man.
sport would be a lot less.
It's a lot less.
It'd be a lot less to help have kids in activities before you have to pay to incarcerate them.
Capitalism is
But again, like, they take a lot of fundings from the community because for whatever agenda that politicians have or the people in power have, like, they say one thing out, from one side of their mouth, but their intention doesn't really coincide with the things that they're saying. They want to help the community, but yet you're depriving the community of certain resources. You want to help kids, from not getting in trouble, getting locked up, but you're taking away the things that would occupy their time, that would help prevent it. So it's, it's just like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too at the same time, and it's a disservice to the community. I mean, it's a disservice to everybody involved.
Yeah. So when you guys are working with your communities, are you like organizing things, or your parents are calling you? Like, how are you guys getting involved?
Well, we started to do events, and so we did the one event, and then we did we do stuff like trunk or treat, and all this stuff is self-funded. So we're like I said, we're nonprofit, so we fund it ourselves, or we have a gathering of friends who
push.
It's
Yeah.
all-
People that have different businesses, volunteer their times and come.
and then we'll do like a trunk or treat, like I said, then we did a back to school, and then whenever we get a chance, we partner up with people on the streets to do maybe like street outreach. We just did, we gave some,
But
we
we-
fed the
yeah.
homeless, give them, just
We-
collected a bunch of stuff for the
We
homeless.
also feed the youth for free as
Yeah.
well, to get them to, there's a gym out in Harriman, and we know a lot of the kids from like West Valley can't make it up there, but to help promote their thing that they was doing up there.
we have a lot of partners basically,
Yeah.
friends, like-minded friends, like our friend Sonny who helped feed them. He has like a.
He's a kid, he does
catering, so he ended up cooking for, we pay for all the food to feed the kids so they can have one day, you know.
Yeah.
And then we got backpacks together, we all put our money together, and then we
And
gave
this is,
backpacks.
like you
So-
mentioned, it's all self-funded, it's just out of our own pocket, we look at what we have,
Yeah.
and then we'll make a phone call with certain organizations, like,
We
hey,
just been doing, like how we do it on the streets, whether it's selling dope or, you know what I'm saying, but now we're doing it in a different space, if that makes sense. So we're gathering all our resources, making phone calls like, hey, we wanna give some backpacks, well, shoot, let's get on Amazon, let's do this, let's do that, let's meet at the park, let's go, we'll go call the park, we go set up the appointment to rent the place out, so everything is done just within us. And what's happened is people started to see it.
start
And
talking
so
about it,
then next thing you know, we're in these spaces of like, we've gotten the Odyssey House, and we've gotten to a few spaces where we can make an
Decorate-
impact.
decorate-
And that's what's
yeah,
been happening.
and a Decker Lake.
Yeah, we go to Decker Lake and just spend time with those kids that are in there. So we've been asked just.
So you have been into Decker then? So
Yes.
you've
Yes,
dealt with
Yeah.
Stephanie and,
We go,
April.
there's Fred.
Fred is our point of
Yeah,
contact, and,
Fred is our point of
and we
contact.
met the kid that got the 100 years,
The kid from
Jeff.
Grantsville, Jeff. I had a
We met
conversation.
him, and we met a bunch of other kids in there, and
Yeah,
that
so-
kid, and I don't want to, just my,
Yeah,
he needs some mental.
He needs
How do you get a
is that the
100 years?
Grantsville kid?
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
He
that's a
needs some-
sad.
100 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, how
this
do you
kid,
even get 100 years when you're?
well, here's the thing with that kid. You can tell he's
Yeah,
got some
he's
mental issues because
got
all he
some-
does, he just cleans.
They gotta give him some
When we were there, he
help,
just
man.
cleans everything. He's just kind of like the guy who man, everyone's freezing.
You can tell he's a bright kid,
Bright
but
kid.
there's something that's off.
Yeah, and he needs
Exactly.
that kind of help. He shouldn't be.
Yeah, he needs, he needs some mental
So-
help, not
And I got to find
incarceration.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of
You can
the
combine the two for a duration, but not 100 years. Like, how do you even justify? I got 26 years, and for me, I wasn't even 26 years old. I'm like, you're sentencing me to a life in prison longer than my actual life, So
Well, I
it's
think
just like, I don't
I
know.
think the work that young people like Nia and some of the young advocates are doing, they're changing the laws. And a lot of it is like Mitch was saying, like grace of people. Does that make sense? Like we can't just continue to lock people up. Like you said, no one deserves to be locked up in a great society. There's other alternatives, and I think the more the young people, the next generation, I think you're gonna start to see that, where people are gonna have more
Compassion.
more of a heart, more passion, and more compassion for people, and at some point, there won't be a criminal system.
Pam, let me ask you this, do you see in the future that there may be a program or something where there is a group of, and I'm not saying us, if there's a group where you can kind of, where these kids are, you can tell that they're gonna do some time, but like a second chance type, you know what, we'll sign you up for this class or whatever, and go through this, and see if you can change some ways, the way you live in now, before we send like a 90-day evaluation. Because they done that before in the prisons.
That's how
They did a 90-day eval.
You went out there for the diagnostic.
Yeah, the diagnostic.
That's what
Exactly. Because a lot of these kids, when you, like the kid that, in Kearns, I just spoke to the Kearns High School, this was back in 2007, 2008. that kid, when he killed the Mexican kid, he think he was
Talking about his last name, right?
Yeah,
Angela.
yeah. I just spoke to that kid. You know, we did a volunteer, went over there and talked to the kids there, and I just spoke to them 2 days prior to that. And that kid is not gang affiliated. I know this. I talked to him and don't know the full story of that, but man, I just felt bad. But it's stuff like that where, I mean, he took a life. I understand that. It was real severe, but
He didn't know how to process that. You know, I don't think he had a way to process what it was, and he just did what society did.
and just think a lot, and we know that because you guys deal with these youngsters. When you see them and talk to them, of course they have a different attitude because now they're caught, they're in the system. But you can really tell they don't deserve to be locked up. What can we do? What can be provided to them instead of just locking them all up? And then some of them do deserve. Like I'll be the first to admit, the case, what I did, I deserve to be locked up. Certified, I don't know, but you know, they did. You know, they did what they did, and but the point is that once we start doing that, it's hard to turn the kid's life around after that point. For me, it was because I got out and picked up another case, but when I really did try, like, man, I got to quit doing this. It's like, and all this hard work. And
One thing they don't realize too is like if you have a kid that's on the fence as far as like committing himself to their lifestyle, but once he goes to prison, he doesn't really have a choice anymore, because a lot of the penitentiary, the way it's set up, there's already prison gangs that run those prisons. And if you're coming out there and you don't get with the program, you're gonna have a hard time. And a lot of people, for safety reasons, for protection, for convenience, sign up with these gangs. And these are lifelong commitments. And now they have no choice because, you know, the way they're structured, their mentality is to spread, to recruit. So when they do come home, they're not reforming their life anymore because now they're under another, you know, they're under this organization here, and their job to come out to the street is to recruit. So you're gonna have, you know, the more people you send into the prison system, the more gang members you're gonna have out in the streets when those people come back home. You know, for me, you know, I didn't join up with any prison. I'm already from a gang out here. But when I got there, I was approached by these different prison gangs, and you know, I refused to join up with any of those things. And I had a couple of confrontations where, you know, I had to hurt some people just to make my point. You know, but a lot of people are just not going to be willing to do, you know, go to the extremes that I did to be able to have my independence. So they signed up with a lot of these different, you know, the gangs in there. And when they sign up, they're bound. They sign up. You know, I try to tell people, like, you know, maybe out in the street, these kiddie gangs out here running around. You can do this, you can do that, you can stop when you want or whatever. But once you get into that system, these gangs that you sign up with, it's not just you're signing up with, you're signing up your whole family. Because now, once you break their code, the structure that they establish, and they can't find you, then they're gonna go to the next of kin, so on and so forth. Because without that threat of violence to your family, it doesn't, unless you're a true believer, it doesn't keep people in line. So now these guys are coming back home. Maybe they want to pivot. Maybe they want to do something different. But you just sent them to the penitentiary for the last decade for something that maybe didn't deserve that amount of time or whatever. And now they come home, they're bound by another law, another code, that they really don't have no choice, no opportunity to pivot their life. So now the cycles continue, and we're just breeding them. And regardless of what people think about the people in the penitentiaries, there's very intelligent individuals in there. They've created networks all throughout the United States and have an iron grasp on their organization, still running the penitentiary from an 8x12, running the streets from an 8x12 cell.
Yeah. Pam, another thing I wanted to bring up was when we went to visit Decker Lake, a lot of them kids that's already headed to prison, that's been certified, they already have it in their head that I'm gonna be all right because my uncle's in there. He said once I get there, they're gonna put me in on TCG, and I'm like, you know, and it broke my heart. I was like, you know, it's like, man. But so it kind of reminded me of this this white kid that I was like when I was getting certified. I couldn't remember his name to this day, but he was also certified. And when we was in the county jail, we was just going through our thing, and he functioned with everybody, with the Hispanics, the Asians, and when we got there, and I didn't see him until years later, and he was all tatted up, and he became part of the white group. Yeah, and it just shocked me. Now I was like, and we had that conversation because we was in the hole. I was like, what happened, man? And it was all like, I had to team up with him, you know. And I was like, dog, that ain't your life. You're not a racist, you know what I mean? But
That's such an. I love what you're saying about that because, you know, like when you guys were talking about like how old you were,
right.
You know, and like you were 18, I think you said, right? But like 15 in 91, you would have ended up straight in, or 90, whatever year it was, you went straight to prison, right?
Yeah.
Where these kids are staying in a juvenile facility.
Yeah, I didn't even get that option.
Yeah, but the thing that's frustrating about it is exactly what you're talking about, right? Like they're in this juvenile facility getting offered all these educational opportunities. You can get college credits now through that, which a lot of the kids that have been in, that are in there on long-term programs are hooked up through this thing that JJYS did with Dixie University or whatever, Southern Utah University. And you know, they're like becoming counselors and leaders and everything, but then they're still preparing for the transition. And so that's been a huge part of the conversation is, to your point, like that isn't, who you are at 15 is not who you are at 25, and who you are at 25 is not who you are at 30, right? And that's been a big part of the conversation has been, even if you keep kids in juvenile facilities like this, if at the end of the day you're gonna have invested all this time and energy to provide things that were a struggle for this particular individual at that time or whatever, if there's just gonna be the automatic transfer to prison at 21 or at 25 or whatever age it is, without any meaningful look at the individual.
Yeah, to see if there's any progress to continue on in the system, like if.
Which the good news about that is the Board of Pardons is in the process of creating a rule about that, where they would have to have
an evaluation.
Like also looking at that one, I don't know that the rules passed. I think that's one of the things that's been getting talked about for a while, and I hope that they're looking at that still is there should be like an in-person review before there is the transfer. Like is there still that immediate public safety? And I know it's hard to balance the stuff between that and like there is a victim in a case, and, you know, in these cases that we're talking about with these with the kids that you guys are seeing in Decker Lake, right? And most of those kids are in there where there's like it's been like a violent crime against an individual because we did narrow the transfer stuff some. And so, you know, there is a victim, and balancing those two things is hard, but at some point this individual is going to be released, and so let's release them with the most opportunities possible and into the healthiest situation we can, right? If you guys are in your work in the community, like this is where I'm struggling with our work. Like we know like all the things you're talking about, like we know being detained and incarcerated, and these are your opportunities, and then there's the survival situation within prison, but even within the community, where I'm struggling is what are the resources, and are the resources that we're offering for young kids that either are gang involved or are marginally gang involved or are just being characterized as gang involved? Are we even like close to like the right resource?
I don't know any.
So,
And I think that's one thing that we talked
Yes.
about, because Pam was asking me the other day, like, how are like the rival gangs like pitted against each other or like concentrated? In West Valley, it wasn't really like, oh, this is the neighborhood of the Rives, this is the neighborhood of like Crips. It was just like they all knew each other some way.
Yeah, they all grew up together, but they all know it like. But the thing that I can say about like the valley is like people like me and Des that we've come home since we've been home, and even not even me, but my homeboys that came home before me. You know, they have the same mentality as me as far as trying to pivot, and provide a better life for their kids and for the younger generation. Like a lot of the beefs that we used to have in the streets from when I first went to prison, I see these guys at Cambodia New Year, a lot of New Year's, and I don't recognize their faces. I've been gone, and they're coming up to me like, "Hey, what's up, Mason? Man, we good?" And I'm like, "Sure." Like, who are you? Right? Like, well, we used to get into it back in the days, but we moved on. I'm like, yeah, no, we good. And there's a lot of people that are not getting credit for really trying to rebuild the damage that we've done. Because, it takes a hard lesson before you can learn. Some of us, it takes a real drastic, situation before our eyes get open. But a lot of these guys that have been coming back home, they're not out in the community doing, official work, but just the mentality that we set just in the valley. You got the TCGs and the regulators used to kill each other. You could find them, together, hanging out. The Samoans and the Tongans used to go at it with each other. And a lot of those stuff has, subside, and, I have a space where people come hang out from all walks of life. Not to get into my space, but, but everybody from different gangs, from different races come through, and they all shake hands and hang out and have a drink or whatever. And it's like the problem we have now is that there's people moving in from out of state that's coming into our community that is starting their own stuff. But the people that have been here in the Salt Lake that's went through it in the 90s, like we've helped like pass on that mentality, like, dude, it's not what it is. It's not what it's all cracked up to be. And like, I've enjoyed my time back home. I don't have to walk around because I was really active when I was out here, and there was no space that I could go without getting into a funk. But since I've been home, like, I'm everywhere, and I've seen people that I used to have issues with, and everything. Like, from my personal experience, it's always been like, positive. A little handshake, a little bro hugs, and it's been cool.
Well, and I think we need to provide for the youngsters. Our group, we focus on under 18 just because they're in a space of being impressionable. We can, a friend of ours, he did a lot of time in Cali, but he said something that really stuck with me. Like, you're not gonna get some of these men that are grown. They're fully set in their ways. So I think that's where we're trying to tap in to the younger kids before and get a hold of them before they get into the prison system. And I think when it comes to resources, I think we need more mentorship programs and things like that if we're, you know what I'm saying? And to answer your question, I believe that a lot of it has to do with mentorship and support. So that's where we're trying to get to. Maybe we're trying to create, with the Peace Circle thing that Jerome is trying to bring on. I think that's great because, for lack of a better word, a lot of what the kids are going through is trauma. And so we have, that Peace Circle provides a family home meeting type of setting where kids can talk about stuff like that. And they, doing the work, they say that most men, they're not tapping into that front part of their brain till they're 25. But we can help them, give them some answers before then. We're trying to create a curriculum of our own, whether it's activities or some life tools that, we're still kind of bouncing those ideas around. So as of day one, that's what we want to do. We want to provide some type of program, a curriculum, and then also partner up with Peace Circle, with Decker Lake, so that way we are, instead of being a problem like we've been, we want to be part of the solution. And I really do think some type of curriculum to help these kids, I feel like that's what we can provide, or that's what we're trying to get to.
Pat, just to add to what he talked about earlier about the day one. So the day one, we set it off July 1st. Mesa was one of our guest speakers there, and we had a vision of how we wanted to move this group. And since that time, from July 1st, and I want to bring this up because I feel like it's important. from July 1st, and we're a very small group. You see who we, and Mace's worked with us on several of our stuff, but we started off with a big team. It was about 15 of us when we first got going. But as we got going, a lot of them looked at how we were moving a little bit differently because a lot of them felt like we needed to focus on our people. And I only can take that one way, you know, when we talk about our people. And the way I grew up, my environment, I just didn't see it that way. You know, I function with too many people outside of our people for me to neglect if they needed help. And I wasn't willing to budge from that. I stood 10 toes on it. I was like, we're gonna keep this diverse because I mess around with a lot of different people from all walks of life for me to not give a helping hand to this individual. I couldn't do it.
It's all kids
Yeah.
struggling. It don't matter.
It don't matter what
white,
color
black,
you are.
brown.
And,
A lot of kids are struggling.
So, you know, and you know, a lot of stuff has been clarified since then because, you know, we are talking with those, but we moved on. And it was me and Solo that did the majority of the work. You know, we have other members that is with us now that, you know, that's supported us this whole time. But since then, but prior to that, us actually getting up and going, we helped out a lot of kids. We paid for the year that we actually got going. Prior to that, out of our own pocket, we helped 9 kids out of Granger to pay their football fees out of our own pockets. The next year was 3 kids. But these are all short-term fixes, right? We fed kids. Like we put it out there. It's like, hey, and the plan was 200 kids for a free meal. Come here. And they would, but it wasn't just the kids, it was the parents that were eating as well because they were going up without a meal. And we done a handful of those. We done the backpacks, the back to school with school supplies. All that I'm talking about is out of our own pockets. No funny, because the reason why I don't take any money or ask for any money, because, and a lot of Polynesians get upset when I say this, when it comes to money in the Polynesian community, money's funny. And that money is not used the right way. And the way I grew up, with my integrity still intact and coming from the ghettos with nothing, and the atmosphere we come from, you just don't play with money because people lose their lives over that stuff. And that's my mentality. If you're gonna give me $100, it's gonna be used, 101 is gonna be used on purchasing stuff for the kids that need the stuff. And we have, because we've taken money, but it was within our circle. Anything outside of our circle, we don't touch it because I feel like the reputation we have, the money that's being given within us, it's gonna be used correctly. And we document everything, and that's how we don't
You're
take.
worried if you take money that then you'll be like an outside influence or something?
No, it's like when money starts coming in from the outside, it's gonna be people like, oh, who's getting the money, who's controlling the money,
Exactly.
And that
stuff like that.
And it's just one less drama that I wanna deal with. Like, you got me after.
But you know, yeah, but you know, to his point, just adding on to him, it's like the things that they're trying to do, we have the resources to do some things, but not to meet its full potential because we don't have that kind of resources.
Yeah.
But these guys that are like he said, they cut down. I'm not part of their day one. I'm a friend, and you know, since I've been home, I've been invited to a few different handfuls of organizations and stuff, and they didn't meet the standards that I expected because I didn't see them really doing the things that they were talking about. With these guys, they weren't talking about nothing. They were just calling me, hey, this is what we're doing. You want to come through? I've never sat down and heard them talk about, you know, things that they wanted to do and never saw it. Every time they call me, just like today, hey, you up? We're going down here to go meet some people.
Yeah.
You know, so they're really putting in the work. So that's why I affiliate myself with them because I have my own projects and my own things that I've been trying to do. I do YouTube, you know, sharing my story on YouTube and my clothing line that I'm trying to sell. But I'm working in, you know, I've been trying to find a space because I don't know anybody out here. I've been gone for a quarter of a century. And these guys have provided me a space to help come and share my story. But at the same time, seeing what they're doing, I see the potential. Like everything they've done, it's just through donations out of their pockets and to friends and families that they know. And And they didn't even realize that they had so many people in our community that was willing to help.
Right.
But to get bigger, we need resources. To get bigger, we need the state, we need the government to come and lend a hand. But the difference is that the things that these guys are gonna tell you they're gonna do is gonna be done.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and you know, part of the project is like right here we're talking about juveniles that's getting ready to go to prison. You know, my mentality is like we need to catch these kids before they even think about going into the streets and then getting themselves caught up and now facing jail time. And to do that, you have to provide a space for them. A space for them where they get to know their neighbors. They get to know who's living in their community. Because they grow up, even though we live in the same neighborhood, you don't even know who lived down the street. You know, you might see them at school, whatever, but you never interact with them because the circle you live in say, oh, we don't talk to Mexicans, or we don't talk to whites, we don't talk to blacks, or so on and so forth. So you provide a space for all the kids, where regardless of who they are, regardless of what color their skin is, to come and be able to interact with each other so they get to know. Because it's easy for you to shoot a stranger or somebody that you perceive as an enemy as opposed to, hey man, I used to play ball with this dude.
Yeah.
But even though he's from a different gang now, and our gang is rival, when I run up here, I'm like, damn, Dez, damn. You're not gonna be so quick to pull that trigger because you had a rapport with him when you were in grade school, when you were on the same basketball team, when you were on the football team as opposed to a stranger. You know, I've had those experiences where these guys are from different gangs to me that we're at war. And I just know that we're at war with this gang, but when the situation came up, and we got into conflict, like, I know you, like, damn, homie, what the fuck, that's where you been? And we're just like, it slows us down. And then depending on the report that we had in our past, it might even stop it, it might even be able to mend the gap. Because now it's like, hey man, that's a good dude. Like we shouldn't be fighting with this dude, I know him, you know? And to be able to do that, you have to start at a young age to get these kids to interact with each other, to build a relationship with each other.
One of the things that we have on our website is that we're trying to build community within the community, because there is none. Like, we all live in these places, but nobody knows anybody. Nobody has the neighbor's best interest. And one of the things that we hope to do eventually is to even get funding to help these young people go to vocational school. I don't think that enough emphasis is put on vocational school.
That's true, to learn the trade.
Yeah, if you help people, like I tell people, you know, all the therapy that you guys try to give me is great. All the, you know, they send me to a lot of classes since I've been out of prison, right? You want to help me not go back to prison? Help me find a way to support myself and my family, you know? But they're not interested in that. They're just, okay, come to this substance abuse class. I don't have a substance abuse case. Come to this anger management. I don't think I have an anger issue. I mean, my wife can tell you or whatever. But, you know, they have these things that they are these boxes that they're trying to check off. Because you went to prison, your psychology must be this, and that. You're not getting into why I went to prison.
Yeah, and
You know,
in
and
one of
then-
these
yeah,
programs,
yeah.
you gotta go to court and be guilty to apply for those,
Yeah.
like job court. You can't just go to a vocational school. You gotta get court appointed. You got to have pled guilty. And so they basically use those programs and leverage it after you've been locked up versus why not provide them before then? Why
But,
not give
you know,
those
once you
kids
catch a
something?
case, they always come from a space that you must be the worst douchebag in existence, or you wouldn't have done these things. So they have these boxes. You have your anger issue, you have drug issue, you steal, you lie, and now they're sending you to classes to help you work on these things, even when they don't apply to you. Like, you know, I tell people, like programs that I've been invited to, with that are dealing with prison reform. I tell them plain and simple: you want to help people not go back to prison, help them find a job skill that they can provide for themselves and their family. Because the reason people end up going back to prison is because they're struggling financially, so now they have to find a way to compensate that income, to keep a roof over their head and food on the table. And the things that they use to compensate are usually activities that lead them back into the criminal justice system.
And also, the people like the border pardons, back in the day, you can't put police officers in those spaces. You can't make a border pardons people in law enforcement. Those aren't
Yeah,
All
they
they're
come
gonna
from
do
a
is continue
different
to lock you
yeah.
up. They're gonna
One-
come from a space.
Yeah, when you have police
From
on
that
the board,
space.
when you have police in these spaces, you already failed because the people
Yeah.
that are you trying to help have a very negative perception of law enforcement, of people in the criminal justice system, just because of the history that their family and their friends that they have around them has been involved in. Like how you can have a person from the police department come and talk to you when you have an uncle and a cousin that's been locked up, or one that's been shot by one.
Yeah.
So right from the gate, you've already failed. So now anything that this guy has, even if the message is great, they're not gonna listen to it because they've already put that wall up already. You know?
Yeah,
And one, those guys that come from those ethics don't understand the mentality of the kids because they're not living that life. You can't tell me how to not be a drug addict, how to go into recovery if you don't understand the psychology of the drug addict. You know, when I'm jonesing for a hit and the struggles that I'm going through.
Yeah,
So
just
that's
the feeling of
so that's the
addiction.
things that these guys provide is like their lived experience that they lived it so they can speak to it. And when they speak to it, it's not gonna sound like it came from a book that they read or a class that they took. It's just their personal life that they're sharing with you. And when you hear it, you can see that he's telling you the truth, that it's sincere, that it's real. You know, because he's not doing something off of memory, because it's something he read.
You know, Pam, one of the things that I'm proud of with the Day Ones, that's a success story that I think is a success story. So I've been friends with this individual. She's a single mother, and she had a daughter that was, you know, she played basketball, and the fees obviously they're more now, and where she couldn't pay for the fees, so she reached out to me and asked if we would sponsor her kid, and I was like, yeah, sure. So we did that, and of course the following year was the same thing, and we was more than happy to pay for her fee and just keep her going, and she plays for Oregon now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's playing for Oregon now, and a couple of those other kids that I mentioned at Granger found out that they got an offer from BYU. So, you know, there is a
Success stories.
yeah, behind what we do, and we're talking about guys from the streets that we don't know any about what we're doing. We're just doing it, you know, and we're going to continue to do it, you know. And then I think about, and then we talk about the 801. How many fees we paid for that for those youth that came from West Valley to go play at a city league just to keep them active. And like I said, but these are short-term fixes, and we're just, you know, I'll be honest, my pocket has shrunk since I've been doing this, but I still find ways to bring in money to support what we do, because, you know, everybody's like, oh, nonprofit, and we are thinking about that, but we travel so much that we give our time. When we're here in the state, we try to give as much time as we can back to the community. And a lot of it, you know, we're able to put things together, and of course, and like I said, Mason's been a great, and Laura, they've been a big supporter of ours, and we've always appreciated it. But moving forward, because I want to grow this, and we're going to continue to figure out how to keep funding what we're doing, but we are like firsthand seeing how we are affecting these kids. Like they're now more sociable. They're laughing now because, you know, before when they couldn't pay the fees, they was just like, you know, head down, and now you see them they're interacting with other kids because they're on the team. They're playing in a structured environment, you know, on team sports. You know, they teach you structure and your responsibilities and stuff like that, that these kids are probably, I don't want to judge their home, because everybody grows up different, you know, but they're probably not getting that at home. And but we see it, like when we did the backpacks, man, it just to invite some of the friends that they needed to see themselves, that it opened up their eyes, like, yeah, you know, you get what you guys are doing are affecting these kids, because you can see it on their face.
Yeah, because I mean that's what how Mia and I started talking, right? Is like we've I mean, I think some of my frustration in watching things that have happened pre and post pandemic, right? Like if you just look at it in this really short period of time, is I feel like we've had a lot of changes to the juvenile justice system in Utah that have been very, very positive. Not that we don't have like lots of work left to do and lots of things that we need to continue to work on, but we've made a lot of good strides. And then, you know, we had the pandemic situation, and there's this perception that crime has just exploded and is out of control, when in reality it's down again. And in fact, violent crime in Utah, I think, is
I
down
just saw it
again.
on the news.
Yeah.
Yes.
And but we did. I mean, the reality is we did have an uptick in young people with guns involved. And to me, we're in a state where we're never really going to be able to have a bigger conversation about how are young people getting there. I mean, that's just too. There's just too many guns, right? Like,
Second Amendment rights around here.
yeah, and so it's really frustrating because we go into all these conversations and it's like, what can we do? How can we help? But we can't have the real conversation, which is there's too many guns on the street. You know, I'm not saying I'm opposed to the Second Amendment. I'm not saying any of those things. What I'm saying is that, like, at the point in time that a 15-year-old kid can access something like that, we got a problem, because a 15-year-old kid is going to make an impulsive decision, or based on, you know, like what you're talking about. I don't know this person, but I do know that person. And what's the thing that gives the pause to a 15-year-old person's brain, right? And so that's where we kind of started talking about it originally, was we were getting a lot of pushback about there's this uptick in crime with kids is out of control. And like, that's not accurate. We have, and the truth is a lot of those kids that we've had that have been involved in situations like that have very small histories. Some of them have I mean, it just depends on the individual, right? But I think that's a lot of what Mia and I have been wanting to talk about, is how do we, one, anytime a gun is involved, everybody wants to characterize it as gang involved. And I think I'm really struggling with, like, what is true gang involvement and what is, this is my community,
Exactly.
you know,
Right.
and how well are the programs that are being offered through the juvenile justice system really getting at? And what we're really missing is what you guys are talking about, which is the credible messenger piece, right? Like the person that can talk to a young person
Right.
and have some, like, well, the credibility to, like, be able to speak with them and stuff like that. And I mean, that's one of the things we're always talking about, right? Like, it's not a program that's ultimately gonna make a difference in a person's life, it's a person.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we had been, so that's what me and I started talking about last spring, is like, there was all, oh, guns are out of control, and that means kids are out of control. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're conflating two issues, right? Like, I don't wanna conflate guns with kids. I mean, it is a problem when you have a weapon like that in someone's hands, but I don't wanna, no child, you know, to Xavier McElrath Bay, right? No child is born bad, right? And so, I think to me, it's like, how do we get to those young people in a meaningful way and have an honest conversation about, this is where, because like when you have a gun involved, right? Like it goes from this situation that's a fist fight to this situation that's like, you know, a 20 to life in 2 seconds.
Their presence, their history, where they've been, really, like, you know, as far as like street terminologies, these are like OGs from their gang perspective. You know, I can put myself in that category too, or whatever. So when we come to speak to these kids, in essence, we're giving them permission. We're allowed. We're not telling them what to do or how to live their life, but coming from people like us, we're saying, and like, oh, that's a big homie right there, and he's saying it's cool not to be out there running around. Because, you know, a lot of people, they want to please their big homies. They want to, you know, they listen to the older guys tell them what to do, but the problem is the older guys are telling them to go over here and do this and this and that. So now we have people like us saying, hey, maybe you rather go over here and come over here. But seeing that we've been there, seeing that we have the street creds, you know, and the resume that we have, the kids it's easier for them to listen to us, to follow, because if Mesa, they say it's okay. Like, you know, and then at the end of the day, if there is an issue with the stuff that we're saying, we have the clout to go into those neighborhoods and speak to their older homies or whatever. Because we all know them. We know as far as Utah is concerned, from all the gangs from up, you know, from below Ogden all the way down to Provo. I don't know anything about Provo. I don't know if they got gangs out in Provo. But out here in Salt Lake County, every single gang that exists, we all know somebody from there.
Exactly.
Every single one of them. We all know the leaderships. We all grew up together. We all went to the juvenile system and onto the penitentiary system together. And now we're all starting to come home. So we have rapport with all these different people that around the county. And we've had conversations with them. You know, I was like, hey, what's up? Oh, hey, what you were doing? Because a lot of people was worried that I was gonna come back home and be on the same garbage that I was before I left. You know, and when I came home and I told them, no, this is what I'm doing, and everything, like I said, everything that I received was like, man, no, that's good, and
Oh, sorry. That's the one advantage we have over any authority figure here, that we can pick up the phone and call the other side. It's like, we need to talk about this problem that we have and have a face-to-face sit down. These cops can't do what we do.
Well, that's the thing too that me and I have been talking about is like, what is it really that through our programs, right, that are court involved things, are we doing that's getting at whatever the tensions are that are justifying or creating the issues, right? So let me ask you this. I mean, because like there's two conversations really going on, right? Like, I mean, big thing, like we all agree the criminal justice system in and of itself is like a whole monster that we have to address. But if you're just looking like what's the immediate goal right now for you guys? Like if you're like next steps, you know, like
Our immediate goal right now is how can we provide more for the youth to stay active, more programs where it's, because everything costs a lot. Every sports, whether it's tennis, basketball, it's ridiculous amount. And then the camps. And we just, you know, then the kids that wants to do music or, I mean, it doesn't all have to be sports. It's just trying to,
it just, you know, like me and my wife, we've been running around, because my sister's a realtor, and we've been running around looking for a space, because our dream is to have a space for the kids to come after school. Don't cost you anything.
After
You
school
come here,
programs.
and then there's somebody there that you want to learn how to play basketball, can teach you and coach you how to play basketball. There's a room over there, you're more to the arts or the musician. We have people in the community that have skills that's play sports throughout their youth that are able to teach these kids and provide us some you know, to help educate them. And through that, you know, like there, you know, what the program with them was helping. First started out helping kids play in sports. You know, sports, art class, music class, all those things are disciplines that these kids can learn and apply to real life when they get older. Because for you to be able to be successful at sport, you gotta learn how to communicate and be part of a team. You know, for your band to be able to sound good and coherent, the same thing. You have to learn how to work together, learn how to communicate, learn how to be respectful. And those things is not something that you tell them, it's something they're gonna pick up, because people that participate in these things, they wanna be successful at it, they wanna get better at it. And the only way to be able to be successful or get better at it is to adapt these traits and apply them. So you know, when you have a space for those kids, and like I said, when you invite the kids in the community to come, they're able to have an opportunity to befriend each other, to befriend this guy that's white, to befriend this guy that's Tongan, and so on and so forth, where they build long-lasting relationships. I have friends that, you know, from when I was a childhood, that we grew up and we went separate ways and bumped heads, but like I shared the story before, but that relationship helped it to prevent it from escalating to a certain degree, because we had that rapport with each other.
So let me ask you guys this, like one of the things they're always talking about, like when you go to like the county stuff and everything, is giving like free rec passes to kids and stuff like that. Have you guys seen that?
No,
Or
I've
do
been,
you think
look,
that
I've
would
been
be-
to, what's that park on 56 and 3100 where we did that event?
Yeah,
There's a lot of community rec center, but those kids are left to their own demise. They're just going there with a pass and they go play ball.
And they need
And-
like the mentor
Yeah,
there.
they're not there with somebody that's speaking to them. They're not there there's nobody involved in their activity. They go check out a basketball and they're shooting, or they're jumping in the pool and swimming around on their own.
So we'll
You know,
just
we
call
want to
it,
provide a
like
space
mentor
where we have a
that's,
staff there.
you know, overseeing
Yeah,
this.
where we have a staff there, that we have certain curriculars established for certain days, and you come and you're gonna be dealing with Dad. Look, Dad's gonna teach you some freaking life skills or whatever, and the kids are able to interact with us, communicate with us, hear some of our stories, and be like, oh, you know, because guaranteed their parents that come through is gonna know one of us, especially if they're from, you know, out there, you know, dip, 1 foot in, 1 foot out in the streets.
So some of this stuff, like you guys have organized your own events, but
Right.
then you've also dealt with like and been into like Decker Lake
Yeah.
and like gone in and like been able to do that. And then like there's some other. I'm just trying to think about like where we could make some connections to kind of. I mean, I don't know where the money for the contributions come from. I don't know, but I do know like where some of the conversations are happening. So I'm just trying to think about that. About like there is, if it's okay with you guys, what I would love to do is there's a magnet and a Midvale coalition. Did you guys talk? Has anyone talked? There's this stuff called geo mapping. Have people told you? Did they tell you about that when you guys talked to Sim at all? Because I think his office knows a lot about it. But so one of the things, Salt Lake County has this thing called the Criminal Justice Advisory Council, and actually Salt Lake County, I have to be honest, is really impressive, and it actually became a model for like they created some legislation to make all other counties have this, and it really brings all the people together. It brings like mental health providers and like juvenile justice folks are there, and it's kind of trying to get, and sheriffs are there, and the mayor is a member of the council, and anyway, and it brings all the different agencies together to talk about what's going on in our community and how can we focus on things. And some of the things that started getting talked about as they were doing this geo mapping, where they were looking at where are we having like our peaks in like crime rates and things like that, and then but then if you look at it, it's like, okay, there's a lot of crime happening in this particular community, but if you look at the individuals committing the offenses, the individuals in that actually live in this zip code, whereas the offenses are happening here, right? But then it really started to do some other stuff on top of it, which is overlap. Where are the resources? Like if you broke down the county, right? Like where are the rec centers in this county? Where are the the Boys and Girls Clubs in this county? Or like where are the spaces for those types of things? And then like the dynamics of all of that. But anyway, what it did is it created this thing, these two coalitions. There's the Midvale Coalition and the Magna Coalition. And it's a group of like members, more like stakeholder types, like government types, I would say. But I've been a part of that through our work with this, and I think it'd be really interesting to put you in touch with them to see kind of where they're working, because I feel like that's what we're missing in so much of the work that happens like in those areas, right? Is you can figure out like, okay, here's the rec center, but like to your point, that's a great point, right? But like if there's not someone there cultivating the activity or helping to build the bond between two different neighborhoods or whatever we want to call it or whatever, how is that happening? Anyway, I don't know that they have any funding or anything like that, but they're probably involved in other types of things. I know they have one of them, I always forget if it's Midvale or Magnet. One of them did get a big federal grant to support some of this stuff, but I don't know what the grant is like already dedicated to cover and stuff like that. But I think getting into some of those areas would be super helpful, because there's a big disconnect between these are our structured things that we have to offer versus like these are our community connections, which is really where we're missing.
Yeah, the community centers, there's nothing community about it except for a place where you pay $7 for a day pass and you go in and do whatever you're gonna do.
See, and that goes back to your point about giving out the passes. Yeah, I mean, but then these kids that need guidance, there's none.
I don't know if this is part of the conversation or anything, but there's a lot of unused abandoned buildings all throughout the valley that, one, is a sore on the community because it's all raggedy and run down, and two, like, it can be used for something positive. Like, we're not looking for money, but we're looking for a place to build, to provide, our life experience too. And like I said, the community, they have community centers all throughout the valley, but there's no community in that center. It's just a place for people to come and play ball or swim or whatever. The thing that we're talking about is have set curriculum, set schedules on programs, and one of us or whoever they decide is there to teach that skill set and interact with the kids and have them interact with each other. And I feel like just working on something after the kid get in trouble. I think it's great because it's better than nothing. But for me, I think that there's more. More can be done if we prevent the kids from even having to have to call your office.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And to do that, you have to start them at a young age.
Yeah.
To do that, you have to provide it for the families that can't afford the $7 a day pass. We can set up a system where we go and pick up these kids on a bus that don't have rides to come to whatever it is that we're providing for that day. And we just, from my experience is that if I know somebody, if I get in a space with somebody, that I have the opportunity to get to know them and become their friend. And being a friend helps prevent them from being an enemy later on. If these are the kids that we are trying to target, I believe that we have to get them when they're younger. And what separates us apart is that there's going to be people that's going to be resistant to what we're trying to do because the way they have it set up benefits them however way it is, so they want to keep the chaos going. But we can come in there and they can see that we're coming from a space, not trying to judge them on how they live in their life or how they're teaching the kids. Our space is just, look, man, we've already been there, and we don't want it for your kids.
Yeah.
So help us, help you, because you yourself, I don't care who they are, what life they live. There's no parents that want to see their kid locked up.
Yeah.
And if they say they don't care about them, then that's not a very good parent. So when we come with that conversation, and that's all we're saying, we don't want to see your kids, you don't want to see your kids in jail, we don't want to see your kids in jail. So help us do things to prevent that.
When you guys did the event where you were the speaker, because this is something that Nia and I have talked a lot about, like you guys are doing this, your free time, your own pockets and stuff like that.
Yes.
And so until you get the resources that come along to support, right? It's like running a little thin here. It's like it's amazing as you're doing all this, but the reality is there's more kids that need help than there are you guys, right?
Yeah.
So when you did that, because that's one thing we've talked about is, what if we did an event where we had focused more on community organizations there that were present for the families that we interact with, but more like a panel of individuals to speak from that mentor perspective. Because we know we don't have enough mentors to assign every kid a one-on-one, and we don't have the funding, right? For the mentor to be I also got to go to this job, right? Have you done, I know you were a guest speaker, but have you done a whole panel thing like that?
We are currently going to get ready to put something together like that. And I know that when me and Nia first started doing talking about this, we have talked about it. And then also, you remember Stephanie would talk about, we talked about doing that specifically for the men in prison, where we want to speak to their families, if that makes sense, and giving the families a space. So yeah, we've been talking about stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that's where we can make a difference. I think.
And that's
me and Mason just had this conversation last week. We're gonna figure out all of our schedules, we're gonna do a Teams meeting. But we're also gonna reach out to other organizations that we ran into. And just because when we did ours, it was just our own, and it was a big one for someone that just didn't know what we was doing.
Because imagine they barely started July 1st to start doing activities and yeah.
So we're gonna reach out to other organizations that are along the community side and have them set up booth and provide their pamphlet or whatever, or share their, and do it where we have a bunch of guest speakers. And again, we're still new to it. We putting it together, and this is the idea that me and Mason we talked about it because this is something we need to do for our 1 year to kick it off, but invite other groups that is doing pretty much trying to do the same thing we're doing.
And we want to invite like these groups of youth groups
Exactly.
to that event and give them like a little concert, a little a space,
A voice.
voice
We
for
would
them.
love for someone to even get up there with their parents' permission, of course, to even speak about some of the stuff they're dealing with. And because we do mentor some of them, they can speak about from then till now. And, you know, because they're more open. A lot of them was just, you was all like, man, he's got a sad life, you know. Now they're all smiling and, you know, giving us dabs every time, and you can see the change.
Yeah.
So to give their lived experience, and you know, but we do want to open it up where it's not just us, it's other.
Yeah, they're from day one, but we can't do the work that needs to be done ourselves.
Right.
And anybody that, well, you know, but the criteria for us is that we want to work with individuals that are sincere about this.
And that's the hard part.
You know, and that's the problem that we've been having when we ran into other organizations that they're not doing the things that they're professing to do. And for us, our integrity comes first before any funding, before any connection,
Facts.
before any conversation. And like they're volunteering their time. You know, I'm volunteering my time. They just cost my time is fluid. I just call me as everyone. But yeah, we want to work with people that are like-minded. That the only agenda is to help better our community. Because you know we have our own jobs and everything that provides the lifestyle that we live already. We're not looking for anything extra. We're just looking for the opportunity and help with resources that we don't have ourselves. Because they just started a year ago, last summer. I met them last summer, and since then they've been pretty busy. But they have the potential because, like I said, with who they are, they're able to reach out to spaces that somebody that are just a non-profit, but you don't know nobody in the community, you don't know nobody that has connections with the kids that they're trying to help.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so
Yep.
when you come have that conversation with you, people are not gonna really try to hear it. Whereas opposed to these gentlemen, when they come through, the community knows them. The community that we're trying to help already knows them. Their parents, these kids, their parents' kids, their parents' uncles know who they are.
I want to touch on something that you mentioned, like why these programs that have been implemented hasn't worked previously, or not working to, you know, the vision that these people have. And the main problem is the people that organize these programs don't understand the people that you're trying to reach out to. Like Choose Gang Free, you've already failed with the name. You know, like
That does sound pretty dorky.
it's the corniest name I've ever heard. When you said that, I was like, which kid in the street is want to go to participate with that?
Yeah.
You know, they tell you there's, you know, pictures of 1,000 words, same thing with names. It emphasizes and gives people certain
But how do you advertise
certain
it?
images of certain things.
See?
Like, we don't want to do anything with gangs. We don't want anything to tell you we're trying to convert you from joining a gang or prevent you from joining a gang or helping kids in a gang. Our agenda is to help the community, the kids, from whoever, whatever you are. Here's a space to divert your energy to with people that can understand and relate to you. Because, you know, when you emphasize, like, choose gang free, a kid that's already in a gang is not going to go over there.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And the kids that are involved anyway, why would they want to? They're not choosing a gang anyway, so why just the name? Just, you know. And I'm sure the ladies that run the program mean well, but like you said, if they're focused on going into the linguals of the streets and who's this, who's that, you've already put the kids off.
And
Because
honestly, it sounds
don't-
kind of
yeah.
cool. You're like, oh, you get some lingo. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like the drug-free programs when I was sitting there and I was like, oh, you get to see cool colors and then you might move. Like maybe I'll try marijuana.
You know, yeah, it's just, right? You know, and the things they get are not factual because these are just, they arrested some kid and this kid wants to share a little bit of information about how his gang operates or the language that they use, so they run with it. You know, so at the end of the day, that's not even entirely accurate. Like I've watched Gangland and I've seen, you know, when they put all the terminology, Buster means this, Silver means this. I'm like, are you guys really serious? Like,
Well, right, like, what's the purpose of that? Like,
Yeah.
how does that help me interact with
No.
my client?
yeah, and our thing is just, for us, is just to help the kids that need help. You know, provide a space for kids to divert their energy and have a line of communication and rapport with them. Allow them to interact with other kids that they normally won't run into on a regular basis. So they can themselves, not us, but themselves, build a relationship and rapport with these other kids. And I feel that goes a long way. If you have a personal relationship with somebody, it goes a long way to helping mediate situations and problems that might arise down the future.
Well, as you guys like go forward with like planning events, I mean, I would love, like I said, we haven't said this part, we're on a county budget, so we can't, our dollars are dedicated specifically to what our
Yeah.
budget allows us for. But what I can do is help make us connections with the people
That'd be
doing
great,
this stuff.
totally.
And I would love for our office to be able to partner with you guys
Yes.
in bringing those people
Love that.
together or making connections with kids that
Love
you
that.
see
Yes.
that are really. The other thing that I see as real potential with working with you guys is there's a lot of kids that I see who have so much potential. If they could become the mentors,
Yes.
that would be right.
Yes.
And we don't have anywhere to send those kids, right? We have the program that's like, this is the program you have to do to complete your probation agreement. But where do you, like, now you learn these skills or you've done whatever, but like now, how, like, giving back is such a big part of building the community that we're talking about not having. And so I just, if it's okay with you guys, as I work with people, I'd like to reach out to the women involved with those coalitions that I was talking
Yeah.
about and see if we could like connect and maybe there's space for some, you never know where there's opportunities, right?
And that's really what we're trying to do is get more into these spaces where we can make a difference and we can get our voices out even more for these young people. And like our events that is coming up, we love for you even to just allow you guys a space to talk about some things that we do, you know, so.
Happy to do whatever you guys think would be
perfect.
helpful.
All these things, these partnerships,
Yeah.
we're very grateful.
The thing that really stuck out to me with this is like when you're talking about kids that are in gangs and like heavily gang affiliated, instead of thinking like, oh, they need to be punished more, I'm thinking, oh, they need the most help. Like they need the most resources and mentors, and so like if there can be a way to like shift the narrative from like a gang makes them need to get in more trouble rather than like a gang means that they are, you know, maybe have the most trauma, maybe have the least amount of support in their communities, to get like policymakers thinking like that. Because right now, like what's the point of the enhanced gang penalties? It's just to be like, don't be in a gang or else you're gonna get in extra trouble, right? Like,
Well, and again, my question comes down to,
I mean, the crimes
is all
aren't
gang
committed.
activity bad activity?
no, I mean,
No, it's not. It's in, you know, in a gang, it's a way for those kids to identify themselves to be part of the group. So you give them an opportunity and give them permission, coming from people that they respect, to take pride in some other things, to identify themselves like, hey, maybe maybe my ethics, my morals, whatever it is that we feel that makes you a better person is more acceptable to the things that you're doing. Because the things they're doing, they're just building up their reputation according to the image that they want to project, because they believe that's the images that people think is cool and acceptable and respected, as opposed to somebody that's taking care of their family, somebody that's at school, going to college. So a lot of it is just trying to help them pivot their thinking.
Well, and so much of it too is like with the gang stuff that I think is hard for me is like when we're saying like choose gang freeze. It's like we're not asking you to choose between your community. We're asking you to choose between what is the behavior that you're engaged in,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's kind of some of what I was talking about too. Is I really would love to know at the heart of it how much is like community and how much is we're gonna take you into the room and everybody checks out. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
I just
no, like,
I'm
I'm
not sure
involved-
how much the
yeah.
narrative of what I'm being told is.
Like everybody around me is gang members. You know, my community, they kept in touch with, and we come home, we have barbecues, we have family gardening. It's just a big family.
Right,
I
so
mean,
does gang activity mean criminal activity?
No.
I guess is my point,
Yeah,
right?
no.
And that's the narrative, right?
Yeah, because we're a family. You
Yeah.
know, we decided to give ourselves a name to separate ourselves from somebody else. So now when one of us or two of us get in trouble, they label us a gang. Like my gang, they got RICO'd in 2006. You know, they arrested 35 of us. I was already in prison at the time, waiting to get indicted with them. But we weren't an organized crime family. But they wanted to, but they know that using the RICO Act, we're able to be able to tie other people that just because you're affiliated into the indictment and give you out time. So that's what they use. They misuse a lot of these criminal statutes just because they're saying they're cleaning up the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Like they indicted all the guys from Glendale. Some of them weren't even gang members. They just grew up in Glendale.
Mm-hmm.
But because they were affiliated with these other guys that were running around doing activities, they all got pulled into the indictment.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and even if you think about drugs, like why are people selling drugs? Well, probably because it's they're not getting the resources they need elsewhere. Like,
Yeah, you go buy freaking Oxycontin, it's gonna cost you a lot more than a little bag of heroin off the streets.
Yeah, right.
That's
Don't make sense, huh? Get straight from that.
Okay, well, so I have a meeting, I think it's Wednesday that I have that other invite, anyway, but I'll follow up. But
Okay.
then, if you guys will just keep in touch with us about, if you think of ideas about ways for our office to be helpful and engage in a meaningful way, I think that would be amazing. And we'll just keep in contact and kind of keep working from there, and,
Definitely.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
we
for-
appreciate
thank you guys, and thank you so